Well, we are joined now by Harry Schroeder from St. Louis, who is a longtime observer of Missouri Valley Conference basketball and a journalist and a minister. So he's really a man for all seasons. Father Harry, how are you, sir?
I'm doing great, Art. Good to hear from you. Good to hear from you, Wyatt. It's always fun to be with you guys.
You bet. Thanks for being on with us.
He doesn't mean that. He doesn't mean that at all.
Well, in your case, maybe.
I absolutely do.
So, Harry, of course, the latest is, I'm sure you're aware, 3 of the 10 Missouri Valley Conference men's programs have had to pause practice, at least temporarily, because of positive COVID tests. And the protocol being, it seems, that if you got one positive, then you're shut down for 14 days. Now, next week is when games begin for a lot of teams, and I understand they're going to be tested 3 times a week, and then it'll be as close to a bubble as you can get and still be a college student. But what are you thinking about under these circumstances, the full season being played?
Yeah, I don't think there's any chance, Art, that the full season is going to get played. I mean, meaning I think there'll be great limitations in the games. I think if Missouri Valley teams get 10 or 15 games in, they should be cheering and excited that they got that many games in. I think it's really going to be difficult. I was talking to Ohio Valley Commissioner Beth DeBush last week, and they're already making adjustments. And as the NCAA has recently announced that teams have to play X amount to qualify, but you can apply for a waiver because they're already seeing the handwriting on the wall as well. You said 3 teams, and you're probably not including Bradley. They had to at least pause for a day. So really 4 teams in the Valley have had some kind of interruption already, and like you think of Loyola, they don't even have students on campus, and yet they had a problem. And so, yeah, this thing is crazily out of control, particularly even in these Midwest states where the Missouri Valley footprint is, where I think it's going to be difficult to get the season in.
So what is the situation on the ground there in St. Louis and St. Louis County right now? I've got a sister-in-law and brother-in-law that live in St. Louis County, and all along throughout this, they have indicated a greater degree, and I don't think fear is too strong a word, of fear and concern than maybe your average person in outstate Missouri or even in southwest Missouri, where even though our hospitals are filling, and it's some of it's local and some of it are people being referred from the outlying areas, I don't think people are quite as serious day to day about it here as maybe some other places, but I'm putting words in your mouth. How are things in St. Louis?
Well, we just went in St. Louis County as of 12:01 this morning. We went to an increased security kind of system. The restaurants are closed in St. Louis County. You're not supposed to do anything anymore for the next at least 2, 3, 4 weeks, and they're hoping to get a handle on it. We just set a new record for most hospitalizations in one day, and the highest rolling rate over 7 days for the hospitals where they're paying attention, the most people in ICUs. It's really a problem, Art, as people know by, if we read the news and all of that. And I heard you guys were talking about somebody. I had a light case of it myself, so I was never in fear, my case was super light, but for some people it's not that way. And so St. Louis is really under the gun right now. Illinois at about 2 o'clock this afternoon, they just went up a level of security in Illinois as well. Restaurants are closing there. Businesses are shutting down to 25%. Businesses in St. Louis County can only have 25% of their people there. Restaurants, you can't go inside. They're threatening all the youth sports again. And so, yeah, it's on the rise for sure. The footprint for the Missouri Valley, Missouri, Illinois, Iowa, and Indiana, those 4 states are all in the top 18 of the 50 American states in terms of most people getting it right now per capita per 100,000. And so the Valley is really, our footprint is really under siege.
And it has seemed up until recently that Illinois, of those states, is by far the one that has been most restrictive of activities, and the 4 Illinois schools in the league had announced that they weren't going to have fans. Now, apparently, the state of Indiana yesterday also went to a higher level, and at least Indiana State, and I would assume Evansville too, will not have fans through at least the month of December.
Well, what they announced both at the Ford Center and at Terre Haute is they were going to have up to some number, and then they slashed that number way down. Like the Ford Center is going to allow them to have, I think, 500 fans, and I think Indiana State is only going to be essential personnel. Yeah, I mean, every one of the states that we're a part of, Iowa's the worst. Iowa's the third worst state in the nation right now in terms of most people getting infected per 100,000 people, and so we're under it, Art. And Wyatt, the Midwest is really being hit hard right now.
And Iowa just yesterday went to a statewide mask mandate, so that leaves us here at Missouri State, and planning on playing home games next Friday and Saturday, and admitting as many as 4,000 into the building.
Yeah, I am shocked by that. I hope it works, and I hope people don't all die. Seriously, I just really hope it all plays out well. But we have seen over and over and over, just the struggle with all of this thing. We know that there's 30 some odd youth basketball programs that are on pause right now across the nation. The entire Ivy League isn't going to play. And so, to me, like I said, I think if we get 10 or 15 games in any one of these programs, we should be high-fiving and excited that we got any games in at all.
What's the perception around everybody, just outside of Missouri State? Because, of course, we live here, and we've had as much of a bit of normalcy as we've had being in Springfield, and we're kind of used to this. But then when we just see all around us, it seems like everywhere else is closed. Just kind of what's the perception of Missouri State and just kind of the aggressiveness they're having to host 4,000 fans with the hopes of?
Well, I do think, Wyatt, that in some situations and cases, you have people on the sidelines and looking at what, Missouri State might be trying to do, or some outlying areas here in St. Louis, just outside the St. Louis area. We talk about those people as living in the wild, wild west, and being, COVID deniers. You guys are those people that are living out in the sticks and don't believe in anything, and I'm, half joking, of course, but everywhere you look, it's a problem. I think we had 5,700 new cases in the state of Missouri yesterday, over 10,000 in the state of Illinois yesterday, and I frankly think, Wyatt, that we still don't know really how this thing is passing. I mean, I know we're all supposed to wash our hands and wear masks and socially distance and all that, but we know people, people. This is anecdotal evidence that have done everything right and still got the virus. And so I think that's what some people look at and say, man, we're doing everything right or everything wrong. You look at the state of California; they've been the most maybe locked down in all of the country, and yet they're ratcheting up their security as of now too, because their numbers doubled like yesterday or last week. So I think it's such a crapshoot in that we don't know why it's really passing from one person to the next.
So I saw something today on Twitter, and you mentioned that St. Louis County, and I assume city as well, restaurants and bars are now closed as of midnight last night. But someone that we both know in the St. Louis media community tweeted that he guessed he would have to drive 30 miles to go to a Starbucks and get out of St. Louis County so he could go someplace and enjoy a cup of coffee and do some work. So I assume that would be St. Charles or I guess any county outside of St. Louis. The restaurants are still open?
Yes, St. Charles County, which is across the river for people that don't know, across the Missouri River and to the west, north and west of St. Louis County for the people down there that don't know. They have said, nope, we're not going to do that. Also in Jefferson County, which is kind of south and west of us, and Franklin County, those places are all still up and running. And we were up until yesterday. We were 50% capacity at restaurants before this morning. And we kind of thought they would go down to 25%, but instead they went to 0. And we've got a couple of restaurants that have banded together, and they're suing the county supervisor right now to try to get an injunction against that and try to stay open. And so the battle lines are drawn all over the place, and because there's some lack of understanding about how it's all going down, and man, these restaurants are just trying to stay in business, and trying to not lay off all their workers. And And so, everywhere you go, it's shocking to me. I see people get out on Twitter and social media yelling at people about you should wear your mask. Everywhere I go, people are wearing masks. Everywhere I go, you can't go into a grocery store without a mask on. I don't know, where the missing link is in St. Louis, because everywhere I go, they're wearing masks. And, even in our church, we wear masks. We wear masks all day long at our church, too.
Yeah, we do too at ours, and in Springfield, of course, we have a mandatory mask ordinance, so that has, even though for people that are reluctant to do so, it has forced them. Some people still refuse, but that has really made it to where there really shouldn't be any choice in the matter. But you get 10 miles outside of Springfield, it's different. So the whole point of this, it was not necessarily to talk about COVID and the mask issue, other than it's impossible to talk about college basketball and not talk about COVID. So you said you thought 10 or 15 games would be a good season for Valley schools, and I assume you mean that with some cancellations, some rescheduling, some stops, some starts. Then who knows, in March, do you see us getting a conference tournament in any form?
Boy, I sure hope so, Art. And you would hope, we're talking virus, the vaccine and all that, hopefully coming out in January or something in that nature, and you would hope that we could get to a place. I could see us having a Missouri Valley tournament just with no fans. And, I told you I was talking to the OVC commissioner last week, and I said, what about media members and all of that in terms of your games? And she said, we just don't know yet. I know I talked to the guys that announce games for St. Louis U, and they're not radio games, and they're not assuming they're even traveling with the team, that they'll be calling games via video rather than traveling with the Billikens at this point. And so, yeah, college basketball, like every other sport, we've seen it in the NFL, we've seen it in college football. It's virtually impossible to predict it all right now. And yeah, I do think we're going to have games canceled and moved and rearranged. And I wish they would have put the Valley teams in some kind of a bubble-ish kind of situation to rattle off 4 or 5 or 6 conference games, but they didn't want to do that. So now they're trying to travel all over the place and get games in. Drake's going over to Manhattan to play in the Little Apple Classic, and Evansville is going over to Louisville for a game next week, for the Louisville bubble or whatever it's being called. And so they're going to try to get games in. I hope they do. I hope we're successful.
What have you made? You bring up the MTEs just trying to play those multi-team events. What'd you make of Missouri State's approach to its non-conference schedule? Because it's just going straight home games and not the strongest. But what do you kind of see in that compared to the others in the Valley?
Well, they're not building up their RPI, are they? I guess we don't care about RPI anymore. But,
no.
But listen, I think they're really smart, honestly, Wyatt. They can control what they can control. What I mean is whatever the folks there at Missouri State have decided is vital, by having so many home games and teams from nearby regions. And, I don't care that the teams aren't that great or if they would be great. They're playing people that are relatively local, and they're in your barn, and you get to decide what the protocols are. I think it's really smart. And, like I said, you look at it and you're not all that excited about some of the teams they're playing, but they're going to get games in, and they're going to get an opportunity to play and hopefully keep their players and coaches and administrators and all that safe, because they can follow stringently their own protocols that they think are going to work.
Well, and certainly, I'm glad, for one, that college football is trying to play, and that the NFL is playing, and golf and some of the other sports. It's given us the opportunity to see those under the circumstances that the current conditions permit. But yeah, that's just kind of where we are now in terms of stops and starts. And Dana Ford called it not a schedule, but a plan, because plans change, and inevitably these schedules are going to change. Yeah,
I think you're right. Art, I know you guys are going to have to let me go in a minute. I do want to just urge people to head over to my website, valleyhoopsinsider.com. A lot of the people there in Missouri State are probably aware that the head basketball coach at UT Martin passed away Sunday.
Yeah.
Anthony Stewart just suddenly died at 50 years old, and they have started a memorial fund that will be somehow in some way made access to his family. And so I'll put a link to that memorial fund on my website. Just wanted to encourage people to rally around the folks at UT Martin there. It's just been a sad week over in the Ohio Valley Conference, which I also cover. And Anthony Stewart was a great guy, a really outstanding coach, and really cared about his players, and just suddenly, tragically lost his life Sunday afternoon. And so I just want to make sure I got that out there before we got off the air.
Harry, we appreciate your time, and next time we visit, hopefully we'll have some basketball to talk about.
Man, I sure hope so. I really, I think the Valley's got an opportunity to have a really good season if we have a season. So, yeah, I really hope we get to talk hoops one of these days.
Real quick, Harry, have you ever heard of Ecclesia?
Ecclesia.
Ecclesia, whatever. I've
Sure,
never heard of it.
yeah. Well, no, not of the school. It's a Greek
Really?
word meaning the church. So, yeah.
Oh.
Yeah,
But
and
no,
that's
I
the school
haven't
the
heard of
Bears
the
are
school.
playing next Saturday.
Yeah, I saw that on
Yeah.
the I
Well,
saw
now
that on
you
the
have.
schedule, and I saw you make fun of them, Wyatt. Yeah, I got that.
Yeah, I do some things. I don't know how to pronounce it, apparently, and I'm supposed to know how to say words on the radio, but that's why I have art.
Yeah, to everything there's a season.
You're a writer. It's okay.
Thank you.
Harry, thanks.
Thanks for your time, guys.